So I thought I'd share with you the landscape again. And out over the hood. Do this again. Look at the distance. And just how big that valley is. Amazing. Pretty colors. Sorry for going so fast. Be somebody's pretty rock. So that's pretty much a full circle. So this here's how it would look from a normal view.
That'll help us descend into the valley. Just slow down on the approach to these corners and we'll be fine. If it starts to smell like our brakes are burning, might be a good idea to use your gears to slow down. Rocky Mountain National Park, like many pine forest areas in the West, has suffered from infestation by mountain pine beetles. We see quite a lot of dead lodgepole pines throughout this part of the drive. The beetles lay its eggs and larvae hatch under the bark, and that leads to all kinds of bad things, like loss of nutrients and dehydration of the tree. Two things kill the beetle: fire and prolonged periods of extreme cold during winter. Unfortunately, that's something that has not been happening in cycles in recent years. Studies indicate that the beetles are able to fly about 2/3 of a mile in search of new trees to infect. Some parks do prescribe burns to try to stop the beetles from migrating by making uninfected trees just too far away, like using burn barriers to control wildfires. But forest fires, even controlled ones, can be risky. Park officials here are hopeful that the worst part of the pine beetle problem in Rocky Mountain National Park is actually past its peak and now on the decline. In places outside the park where wood is harvested by the forest industry, the pine beetle is an economic problem. But the good news is that trees that have been infected and die do not lose the structural integrity and can still be used for construction. But you have to be able to convince the public that this is true. One of the byproducts of the lumber killed by beetles is that it develops blue staining. Some smart lumber mills have looked to market this as a special product, calling it Beetle Kill Blue Stain Pine Wood Products. It can also be called denim pine, and it actually looks pretty cool when used for things like furniture, decorative paneling, and wainscoting. You're doing great, driver. Only 2 more switchbacks and we'll be done. We'll then be driving in the Kawanichi Valley, and the rather innocuous-looking stream that we'll be following alongside is actually the early parts of the Colorado River. Yes, the Colorado River, the one that carved the Grand Canyon, but looks so meek here. There's no grand spot that is the official beginning. It simply starts from snowmelt from the Neversummer Mountains. Water in Colorado is a big deal, and it can be controversial. There are nearly 20 rivers whose headwaters are in Colorado, 20 rivers that originate in this state. And there's not one single river that flows through Colorado from another state. So the source of all water for the state and others downriver is either from rain or snow. There's a saying in Colorado that whiskey is for drinking, the water is for fighting. This is often true, as most of the water in Colorado is regulated by water rates. You may have noticed a horizontal scar on the hillside of the Neversummers when we saw them from Farview Curve. That is called the Grand Ditch. The Grand Ditch was one of the first water diversions in the state. It was dug by hand back in the late 1800s before the national park was established. It was created to divert snowmelt from the Neversummers into the Poudre, which then flows on to the eastern plains. Early settlers knew of the importance of somehow keeping as much water from the mountains and rivers in the state for farming as possible. Tunnels were dug to get water from one side of the mountains to the other. Starting as early as 1879, water in Colorado was being allocated through a series of complicated laws and rights. Lots of diversions were being created, and if someone is diverting water upstream from you, that can be a problem. If someone downstream from you has a senior right over you and is exercising their right, you have to stop diverting and let your water flow on by. The #1 water right on the Colorado River is a power plant in Glenwood Canyon. If they call for the water, all diversions must stop, allowing all of the water to flow on down. It's complicated, I know. The Colorado River, which starts right here above the Kawanichi Valley, flows 1,450 miles through mountains, canyons, and 3 major deserts. It feeds the Imperial Valley in California, which sustains a multi-billion-dollar agriculture industry. More water is distributed from the Colorado River Basin than any other river basin in the world. So with that, bottoms up. Let's take a drink of water.